Hello, everybody. Chris here. First, I guess, proper Kirblog topic that I've done in quite some time. But I felt that this was a important one and a relevant one. And considering, I'm sure if you're watching this, you probably saw the news just the other day about the unfortunate, very tragic passing of Kazuki Takahashi, who is the original manga creator of the Yugioh series, father of the franchise, and big inspiration for many, myself included. And I hadn't talked about Yugioh in quite a number of years, and I thought it would be appropriate to do a little bit of a commemorative look back on Takahashi-san's work. So I'm joined by an old friend I haven't talked to like this in quite some time, Dave Evelyn, also known as Hiroko. Say hi, sir.
How you doing, man?
Doing good. I mean, as good as I can be.
Yeah,
Dave is not only probably the biggest Yu-Gi-Oh fan and fan of Takahashi's work in particular that I know, but also he has been involved with the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise in an official capacity. You want to tell the folks out there some of the stuff that you've done?
Well, in an official capacity, not so much, but like in an unofficial capacity, for like years, I used to translate all sorts of like info and news and like anime and manga and like film to novel adaptation stuff of Yu-Gi-Oh for a few outlets that don't exist anymore.
We've been on the internet a really long time.
Yeah, I'm like ancient in internet. Like I'm a mummy resurrected with black magic.
Very appropriate for the theme, yes.
Yeah.
Well, you do official translations for manga as well.
I do official translation for manga for several companies, including Viz Media, which is the publisher for Yu-Gi-Oh! In the States. Mm-hmm. So,
of course, of which we probably have some mutual friends over at Viz as well. They're good folks.
Probably so.
Yeah. So I guess to start with, I would say we could start with our kind of early, experiences learning about Takahashi's work, and I guess that would probably start with Yu-Gi-Oh itself.
Right.
So, and I actually, because Dave and I used to do a lot of conventions together,
right.
And like way back in the day, and we found quickly that we both were pretty intimately familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh in particular. Although he's on a level far beyond me, because I'll get into some of that stuff later. But yeah, what was kind of your introduction to was it possibly the same as most North Americans in terms of the Kids WB stuff and everything, or did you have a little bit of a different path with that?
Actually, yeah, I kind of differ from a lot of people who have gotten into Yu-Gi-Oh! Because my initial introduction and my formal introduction kind of differ, because my initial introduction was actually seeing Yu-Gi-Oh! In a Weekly Shonen Jump manga. Like, I don't remember how long ago it came out before. It was sometime in, God, I can't remember, I think 98, or maybe...
Yeah, because the manga started in, what, 95, 96?
96. It was,
right.
It initially ran, like, at the tail end of 95, and the first volume came out in 96.
Right.
But I actually saw it in Shonen Jump, because I got Shonen Jumps, Weekly Shonen Jumps through illicit means, and illicit pre Web 1.0 means. So I saw it in there, and I think it was sometime during the Battle City arc.
Okay.
And that was around the time when the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime aired sometime in 99, like the second anime, the Duel Monsters anime that everyone knows.
Of course.
And that, I didn't know about that. I just knew that it was like, oh, this is that game that I sometimes see online with like cards. And then I started doing due diligence, or how much due diligence you can do in fucking 98. And I eventually came upon a site. I don't know if you know this site. It was called Edo's. It was run
No.
by a guy named Edo Hirzik, or
Okay.
his name is Ed, but he used to run a Pokemon site, and I think later on a Duel Master site, or maybe it was at the same time. But
Oh wow.
basically,
Okay.
yeah. So basically, like I learned about his site, and he also did Yu-Gi-Oh stuff too. Um, and this came a little bit later after that. But then I actually went to a flea market that's near me, and I would, long story short, I used to buy a bunch of like VHS tapes
Hmm.
that they would have in a bin because they were like a $2 a piece or something like that,
Yeah.
and they would just have random stuff recorded on them, like Japanese stuff recorded on them, and on it, I actually saw like a preview. It was like a commercial that was like Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters going to be airing on TV Tokyo affiliates or something like that. And at the time, my Japanese wasn't that good, so I was like, "Ooh, shiny colors." Um, because I was like younger than I am now, so I wasn't really all that. It wasn't all that great with my Japanese, but that's when I saw like Gaia getting destroyed by blue eyes and like Judge Man being summoned and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, cool. That's the manga that I saw in the Jump, and that was sort of my formal introduction into it. And then after that, I just kind of went down a rabbit hole,
Uh-huh.
and I just I tried to like, can I get like, like volumes of this? And I eventually bought them all in like inconsequential, what was it, not sequential order.
Hmm.
So I would like get like manga volumes to my house, and that's how I started reading the manga. And basically, my entire like foray into Yu-Gi-Oh started like maybe 2 or 3 years before it actually came to the U.S. Because I think it came to the U.S. and supposed to come in 2000, but then it came in 2001 or something
Yes,
like that.
that's right. Yeah, and that's actually a perfect jumping on point for where I came in because
Right,
I remember when Four Kids licensed the series, and
right.
allegedly they were like not sure how well it was going to do because they, according to what Dan
Mm,
Green had once said at the time, they were like not sure if lightning was going to strike twice with Pokemon because even that was kind of an
mm-hmm,
unexpected success for them.
mm-hmm,
But they licensed the series, and I remember seeing the early commercials for it on Kids WB, and at the time, even for having not I wasn't anything like some kind of anime connoisseur back then in the early 2000s, but
right.
the initial trailers I saw, it gave me this impression of like, oh, this is one of the types of anime that people like make fun of anime for, where it's
Mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm,
really exaggerated art and like the crazy
mm-hmm.
hair spikes and like whatever, and then the crazy thing was, and I don't remember if you and I ever talked about this, but there was in that time around like 2000 2001, there was a
Right.
very brief period where on Friday nights,
Mm-hmm.
Cartoon Network was airing a single episode of each show that was airing on Kids WB at the time. It started with they aired like a random Pokemon episode, and then like X-Men Evolution and Mucha Lucha, whatever was on in the block at the time, because often Cartoon Network and Warner Brothers were very so often in bed with each other anyway that
Right,
they
right.
shared a lot of programming at various points, and then of course eventually like most of, if not all of Kids WB's shows like went on Cartoon Network down the line anyway, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, they actually aired, and I'm quite confident that this was the case. I
Okay.
believe that they aired the first dubbed episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters series
Okay.
on Cartoon Network that Friday night before it was supposed to air on Kids WB, because I think
Huh.
WB was also a very heavy news channel,
Right.
and 9/11 had just happened.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I
yeah,
remember.
yes. And so I recall there would often be, and it seemed so petty back then, like, oh no, my cartoons are canceled, but now I realize, no, that was incredibly important, news coverage, is
Uh-huh.
they were talking a lot about what was going on with the terrorist attacks and everything, which was
Right.
also a crazy tie-in, because again, back to Dan Green again, he talked about like when the attack happened while they were in the middle of recording the show. and
Hmm.
how like how do I make sense of this after this horrible thing has just happened to the city that I live in and work in, and kind of looking to Yugi as this sort of like, well, this character can be like a role model for kids to get through like a hard time, which absolutely he was, and we'll get to my
Right.
adoration for him as a protag later,
Hmm.
but yeah, but I remember seeing that first episode, immediately being like, "What's this guy with the weird bowl cut, like my haircut at the time? And he sounds like Brock." Uh, and but I was entranced by that because I love the first episode, despite the fact that it has kind of an interesting sort of it's sort of a mishmash of combining a bunch of manga material together into one
Yeah.
episode, skipping over a
Yeah.
bunch of things. But it's
Right.
still a great introductory episode to Yu-Gi-Oh as a whole. And
Hmm.
I've watched it countless, I don't know how many times at this point. But so
Yeah.
I was
Same.
drawn in, and then of course continued airing after that point. And
Right.
then I think actually just around that time, like maybe a few years later, and by that point, that was also around the time I was learning about how often shows would be censored on particularly on Saturday morning and daytime TV
Hmm.
for stuff airing on Cartoon Network and Warner Brothers and all that stuff. But
Right.
so the manga started coming
Hmm.
out first in the monthly Shonen Jump, the big fat Jump magazines that we would get in the U.S.
Yeah.
Where they made a big like marketing thing out of we're using the original names, like we're not
Yep.
censoring anything or whatever,
Yep.
and got into that. And then eventually, this was funny. Yu-Gi-Oh was the first and pretty much only series I ever bought horribly like third hand translated like bootleg Chinese bootleg box
Hmm.
set DVD box sets of
Yep.
a pretty large chunk, probably about like I'm sad to say probably a good like half of the entire anime series I owned on those
Oh
crappy
yeah.
box sets, and
Oh yeah.
that was
Don't feel ashamed about that because I think almost every old Yu-Gi-Oh fan has been guilty of that. So
certainly. Well, and also there was that I actually had them shipped to me from my dad back home recently, but I have those very short-lived uncut DVDs that 4Kids
oh
produced
god.
for a very
Yeah.
hot second, and
Oh boy.
and then the craziest thing was too. I think this was about the time that Battle City was still going. I think was
Right.
on American TV anyway. Is I remember
Yeah.
on the TV Tome forum, which people that know my work know that's of course where the origins of Tome come from and everything. But I remember on the TV Tome forum specifically for the Yu-Gi-Oh anime, there was a person on there that was posting a link to somebody had posted raw scanlations of when the
Hmm.
final chapter of the manga had come out. Like it had
Hmm.
just, in fact, it might have been leaked because I know that unfortunately that happens a lot with the weekly magazines too, even
Yeah, it
now.
does.
Yeah, but I remember seeing like, oh my God, the Yugis are separate, and oh, like Merrick's there, and I guess he's good, and oh, there he's going like into this like giant tomb or something, and I'm like, okay, I have a
Yeah.
vague understanding of what's happening, and wow, this is because that was back in an era where I'm just like, yeah, I want to see how a show ends, years before I'm gonna actually see what this
Right.
means in context, which seems so ridiculous now.
Yeah, it's I mean, and a funny thing about that too, the site that I used to provide info for
Hmm.
was called JAnime,
Yeah.
and
Yes, that's
JAnime
right.
used to be around in several forms run by a Thai person, male or female. I think it was male. I'm not too sure, but those scans would end up on JAnime,
Yes.
and I think the webmaster would scan some from their own copy of Jump that they got, and I also got Jump as well at the time. So I was reading in real time the very last portion from about the Alcatraz, like when they were on the island,
Oh, the end of
to
Battle
the
City.
end of the
Yeah.
series,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to the
Wow.
end of
Wow.
the series. So
Yeah.
like
Okay.
that's when I was like actually I had got Jumps again to my house on a weekly basis, and actually able to read that in real time. And that was like around the time that Gianime was still around, and they were still posting stuff. So that
Yeah.
scan might have come from there. who knows? Like at the time, like it was the Wild West, and it still
No,
is, but like it was
you
even
want to
more
know
so.
something, dude? Actually, I think you could be right, and wow, you just dislodged like an ancient Egyptian memory. Because I do recall. Okay, this is a weird little secondary trivia thing, but Tome fans know like the Net King characters are not based, for the most part, they're not based on people. They're based on sites that I used to go to, and
Right.
you know, in that era, you know, because literally this kind of period we're talking about was like end of 90s and like the first chunk of the 2000s. All this stuff was kind of happening, you know,
Yeah.
major stuff with Yu-Gi-Oh, you know, each
Right.
year. I think shortly after that also was when the American produced the Pyramid of Light movie was also made, which I didn't know until years later. 4Kids like commissioned for that to be made, which was
Yeah, they
insane.
commissioned that. They commissioned that with a studio, a sub studio from Korea called Dongwoo Animation. That's
Okay.
part of Gallop. Gallop is the main. Well, they were up until Sevens.
Okay.
The main animation studio for Yu-Gi-Oh. So
Oh,
Dongwoo
consistently.
Animation, yeah, consistently all the way up until Vrains.
Wow.
And they switched over to another company. I can't remember their name actually though. But
Okay.
their studio was Gallop, and Dongwoo was the subsidiary, and they commissioned that from them because they were working on GX at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and GX was also at like so they had to like split teams,
Mm-hmm.
so they got like the I guess you call the Korean A team to work on the Yu-Gi-Oh movie, which is why everything kind of looks shiny and everyone's like greased up with Vaseline in that movie,
Yeah,
and
well, it was
all
very
the
shiny,
weird,
absolutely.
yeah, weird stuff. And then they also later on they commissioned Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, codename Alex, which was Capsule Monsters. That
That's
was also part of
right.
the
Yes.
Dongwoo.
Yes. That was also, yeah. Wow. God, I forgot.
Yeah.
Okay,
hmm
well, I'm sure probably a lot of people forget about Capsule
Yeah,
Monsters for better or
probably.
worse.
Yeah. It like debuted like on a Friday in Germany in English. And like there was no marketing for it whatsoever. Everyone was like, "What is this?" Like,
Yeah. Well, there was
so
so much stuff. Just like, you know, what was that other like a spin-off manga? It was like Yu-Gi-Oh R or something. Was
yeah,
another?
R was by Akira Ito, one of
Yes.
Takahashi's assistants, who went on
Okay.
to
Okay.
draw for Card Fight Vanguard.
Oh.
Uh,
Yeah. Okay.
so yeah, the first three Yu-Gi-Oh spin-off mangas were uh, handled by either Takahashi's assistants or someone who was involved with the anime, like a character designer.
Yeah.
Like I think Zeal was the character designer doing the manga, and not because the GX was done by Kageyama Sensei, who was one of Takahashi's assistants with Ito Akira. And I'm getting horribly off topic, but
No.
um,
I went off topic anyway. It was just the end of
yeah,
that branching timeline was
right,
just
right,
like
right, right, right.
the bit about there was what I was getting to is basically there were a set
Yes,
of websites that I went
yeah,
to like daily, and some of which I still
right,
go to on a constant basis. You know, this is Cerebi.net and Kanzen. Well,
yeah,
it
yeah,
was Daizenshu at the time, Kanzenshu, stuff like that.
yeah.
And I do remember now. JList was at the time one. It was the place that I went to for my Yu-Gi-Oh news. So I realized that
J
probably.
anime, not J list,
All
right?
right, yeah,
Because J
sorry,
list
yeah,
is
sorry. That's a whole different ball game. Excuse me, J
Peter
anime.
Payne would not
Excuse me.
appreciate you slandering.
Sorry. Please excuse me. Please pardon me for that. J anime was in fact
Yeah,
yes. That was my source for Yu-Gi-Oh news, and I realized if
right,
that's the
right.
case, then that yeah, the internet is always smaller than we think it is. That might have technically been my introduction to you long before we actually met. Because yeah,
Probably.
I do remember going there a lot, and that was also when I started. Because I became so obsessed with like the openings. I
Oh yeah.
love the openings of the Duel
Oh
Monster
yeah.
series.
hmm
But actually, to dial back even further, because unless I'm perhaps incorrect about this, you were also
Yes.
one of the rare folks that.
I'm sorry. What
Therefore,
was that?
I was saying that you're technically I think one of the rare folks also that
Hmm.
your starting point was the what people know as the quote unquote season zero material in terms of like the pre Duel Monster stuff because you saw it all. Is that right?
Technically, yes. So the thing about the quote unquote season zero stuff,
Mm-hmm.
the toy anime series is what I'm referring to.
Yes.
Because Yu-Gi-Oh is batshit insane with its like history. So
Mm-hmm.
Yu-Gi-Oh had two animes. They had one produced by Toy Animation, and they had another one. produced by TV Tokyo, and well, I guess you could say Toy Animation and their Toy Animation TV associates, and then they had one produced by TV Tokyo, NAS, and Studio Gallop.
Hmm.
Those three entities are the Duel Monsters, but they actually, it's funny enough, they share a character designer. Shingo Araki
Hmm.
was character designer for both of them
Hmm.
in the opening stages of Duel Monsters and the entirety of the toy anime. So the character model sheets actually are like for some characters just slightly revamped versions of the toy anime series, which is really funny. But actually, I didn't get to see that series until much. I want to say much later. But I did read the manga,
Hmm.
like so I did read the stuff that did come before, like
Yeah, more
Duelist
so.
Kingdom.
Yeah, more so. What I mean is, yeah, the pre
Yeah,
like the Duel Monsters stuff in
yeah,
general. Like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, when it
I
was just
was
different
I was
games.
pretty much familiar with it until I got to I guess like 2000 and whenever the hell Yu-Gi-Oh anime came to America, like 2001.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was familiar with like the origins and stuff like that. So the stuff, yeah, you're kind of correct in saying that.
Yeah.
I'm more familiar with that.
See, and actually on an interesting note too, because I remember just like cold tweeting you about this. I think maybe earlier this year.
Mhm.
A common misconception that I think I've found with fans that maybe haven't looked into this or just maybe the information isn't as easily trackable. But
Right.
explain for folks out there because a lot of folks do know that obviously the early portion of the story it was just Yugi and Yami Yugi playing different types of games and every chapter was a different game. Sometimes they'd have two parters and stuff, and one of the bigger ones was,
Right.
and it was called what, like Wizards and Warriors or something. It was a different name of what eventually was Duel Monsters, was the card
Oh,
game.
okay. Yeah, yeah. So it was called Magic and Wizards,
Magic and Wizards, that's right.
and yeah, Magic and Wizards, and it was basically just a parody of Magic the Gathering, like a
Right.
very on the nose, like you couldn't hit the nose with a sledgehammer, kind of like blunt. Magic and Wizards. But it's funny because in a roundabout way, the English manga ended up using Duel Monsters instead because that was the more recognizable name.
Hmm.
So the English manga, like the one that we have, they changed it to what the anime used to differentiate itself from uh the manga initially. It's very convoluted actually if you think about it.
Wait, hold on. So let me break that down. Do you mean like when they were doing the season zero anime, they were like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe we shouldn't call it Magic and Wizards because
No.
maybe there might be a legal issue.
So no, actually they did use Magic and Wizards
Oh, they
in
did.
that
Okay,
anime.
okay.
Yeah, and then so I'm going to give you a quick history lesson.
Yes, please, please, please.
Around the time of the toy anime, there was actually a video game that came out, the first Yu-Gi-Oh video game, Yu-Gi-Oh!
Okay.
Duel Monsters on Game Boy.
Oh.
That was the first thing to use, and it was also in cooperation with Konami.
Hmm.
Konami and Yu-Gi-Oh! Shueisha, they made Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters as Yu-Gi-Oh! The first anime was being released.
Right.
So a lot of promotion, like if you look up commercials, uh, the first Yugi voice actor, Megumi Obata, she's the one doing the voice for the
That's right.
commercial.
That's right. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so in turn, that partnership ended up transferring over to the Duel Monsters anime.
Hmm.
And then the Duel Monsters anime was called Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters for brand recognition because they were going to be launching the card game to coincide. Actually, I think at that point it already had soft
Right.
launched.
Yeah, that's what I was
So
getting at
yeah,
as well. So, because like obviously the first introduction of the card game was in that first chapter, and Kaiba at the time, Seto Kaiba was
yeah,
just like one of the many. This is the game that I play, and
yeah.
I'm gonna get
He was a
my head
otaku. He
screwed
was a
up. Yeah,
dork.
yeah. Well, yeah. Ironically, even though he, but that's debatable.
Yeah,
But
right.
but so then before the like was it before like the Death Tea and then eventually the Duelist Kingdom
Mhm.
stuff? Was it somewhere after that? Maybe with this video game, did somebody somewhere, maybe a Konami, go like, hey, we should make an actual card game of this with like workable rules and everything. This could be a competitor for stuff like Magic and the Pokemon trading card game and stuff like that. Where did that kind of part of the history start in terms of the physical card game coming into being?
So the physical card game came out sometime around Oh, my dates are going to be all fucked up. It's around 98 to
Okay.
99. So it was around the time. So let's just I there's an example I can give you. The before there was really no real card game until maybe the end of Duelist Kingdom.
Really?
Yeah, because that's where Chaos Soldier, Black Luster Soldier,
Mm-hmm.
was featured in the manga,
Mm-hmm.
and he was also featured as a prize card that actually does not have the blue border. It's a regular normal
Oh.
monster border. So it came out, I think, maybe a month or 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe I can't remember right now, but it came out around the same time as it did in the manga.
Mm-hmm.
So, and at the time, the card game was like well into its infancy. I don't even think it had actually really launched then.
Wow. Okay. So
But
so it
it
was
came
still in the
out
midst of
relatively
Duelist
late.
Kingdom.
Yeah, that's when
Okay.
the what we know as the Konami card game, the official card game, came out.
Right. Okay.
Um,
Wow.
and
Huh.
there was also before that, there was also the Bandai card ass stuff. There's actually a very good video by a man, by a person. He goes by Toya.
Mm-hmm.
He has a very cohesive video about the history of Yu-Gi-Oh's origins.
Mm-hmm.
That if you're interested, you should very much check out because he's actually finishing up the last piece of the series. But Takahashi Sensei's unfortunate demise has
Mm-hmm.
halted that a little bit. But it's actually very interesting, and he actually has like more concise dates. I'm just remembering off the top of my head.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, because
Um,
that is one particular kind of thing. Because of course, the card game itself is something that became
mhm.
the most successful, most
Yeah,
mainstream part of his entire work was the card game itself.
of course.
Beyond anything, even with the series and the characters and stuff.
Of course.
Not that people don't, because the fact that even in
Mhm.
recent years, I feel like the popularity of the card, like the regular card game itself, waned a little bit. Now it seems like it's the video games, which
Mhm.
feature the actual characters much more. So like Duel Links and what's the PC one that folks are really
Master
into?
Duel.
Astro Duel, yeah.
Yeah.
Now that seems to be kind of like making a big comeback, especially for folks that are our age.
Right.
um,
Right.
so transitioning, not even just exclusively to Yu-Gi-Oh, but on a general sense. When we started getting Shonen Jump stuff more
Mhm.
commonly, I feel like that was around the time that American audiences were beginning to understand and appreciate manga creators specifically.
Mhm.
I can recall, obviously Akira Toriyama being like probably the first and still to this day the biggest one that people always,
Right.
the jokes of like anytime something happens that people don't disagree with in Dragon Ball, everybody seems to think that somehow it's Toriyama's fault because yes,
Yeah.
everybody, of course, this one person makes every business decision of everything with this entire franchise. That's totally how it works. But
Yeah.
but in that era, in that era of the early 2000s, I feel like people were beginning to like understand. Oh, and Oda-san and Kishimoto-san and all these people.
Right. Right.
And and Kazuki Takahashi has done quite a bit of stuff. I just found out from the post on Anime News Network the other day that he did I don't know how long it went for, but a Spider-Man and Iron Man like
Oh
official like
yeah.
manga for
Secret.
Marvel. I was like, what?
Yes. Secret Reverse. That actually was a collaboration that he did maybe in 2014, 15
Okay,
that
yeah.
they did not do until just recently, and I was very adamant. I was like, man, I would love to work on that, and it sucked because the editor, I knew the editor because
Hmm.
I've done work with the editor on some things, and they actually got the another person who I'm very much friends with. I'm friends with both,
Hmm.
but he didn't know I was such a big Yu-Gi-Oh fan, so he gave it to the other this other
I find
coworker
that
of
hard
mine.
to believe.
I mean, it was the interactions we had over email weren't telling of me being a Yu-Gi-Oh fan, so
Sure,
he
sure,
just gave it
sure.
to he gave it to one of the best translators that's at Viz at this time, I feel
Hmm.
like. So it was in good hands. It was just very it's sort of like getting the puppy that you wanted like taken away before you could like even say like I want that
Oh.
one. Um but yeah, he was a very Takahashi Sensei was a very big American comics fan.
Oh yeah.
You could probably tell that from like that. There's one chapter where he just basically makes Spawn, um, and there are other things like his love for Mike, the creator of Hellboy,
Oh,
and
Mike
him,
Mignola. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mike
yeah.
Mike Mignola. I can't say his name right. They swapped art like back in
Oh yeah.
2008, no, 2004 or 5, I think it was,
Hmm.
that they swapped art, and he was just a big comic book fan. So yeah, that kind of stuff did happen. Yeah,
Well, but
great. You should actually all buy it too. By the way, it's
yes,
on
absolutely,
shelves.
absolutely. In your deep dive, down the rabbit hole, once like they had you hooked through Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
What was kind of your research into Takahashi-san himself, like it just as an artist? Because we've learned things about some of his relationships with a few of the other Jump artists
Hmm.
and otherwise, and
Right.
kind of maybe some other things. You've already dropped a lot of info bombs for folks because which I knew you would because you know this stuff so well. Like anything interesting that from discovering stuff about him back then.
Yeah, it just sucks because posthumously, like, I have to do this kind of stuff, and I wish, I kind of wish there was like more of an interest beforehand. I would have done this way earlier,
Of
you
course,
know.
yeah.
But yeah, so basically Takahashi Sensei, he, unlike most manga artists who start young with their first hit, he didn't get a hit. He didn't get Yu-Gi-Oh until he was like 30 or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Yeah.
So that's very uncommon. It actually shares a lot of parallels with the manga I'm working on now, Kaiju number 8.
Mm-hmm.
His Because the manga artist for that, Naoya Matsumoto, is also in his 30s, and this is like his first really like almost global hit
Mm-hmm.
since he became a manga artist. And I really like, as I got older, I really appreciate that because it shows that age is pretty much just a number when it comes to this kind of
Oh,
business.
of course, as it should be. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So he didn't start right away with like a hit series. He jumped around from Kodansha. He was actually working on in I translated a post from Joji Georgi Morikawa,
Mm-hmm.
the Hajime no Ippo author.
Yes, yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and he worked with him at around the same time on a series that was a manga adaptation of an anime called Gokyu Choji Ikiman, and that was like one of his manga. He also has like a few. He has like a couple other manga that came out way like in the 80s, like at the tail end of the 80s, that are even more obscure.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't start with Jump until a manga about a guy who's a bodyguard who has to take up wrestling called uh what is it called? Tenno Shoku Danji Burai, and that's like his first work in Shonen Jump that actually had like more than like 2 volumes.
Probably some
Um,
Kinnikuman influences. I know that there was a lot of that for for folks
oh,
back then.
probably. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I've read it before. I have it somewhere. It's in my junk pile of a room.
yeah.
But yeah, it's very 80s, very like, like lovable kind of doofus kind of stuff.
Uh huh.
And like wrestling too. So yeah, probably some Kinnikuman influence in that.
Mm-hmm.
But that was like his first Jump work. And then after that, I think because I forget when that series got canceled. Um, then he started Yu-Gi-Oh in like '95, and that became his first break. Well, it wasn't really even a breakout hit because at the time, it was just moderately successful. It wasn't like the juggernaut that it is, marketing wise now. But it was just like, it went along for, I think, a few chapters. I forget what chapter the Magic and Wizards episode is. But when that hit, that's when he got the fan letters in, and the fan letters were like, "We want more of the Magic clone,"
Yeah, yeah.
and that's when he'd started to, get plans to develop. Kaiba and his weird bold cut as a character. Um, and that's, the rest is kind of like, I can give you like a abridged, no pun intended, history of that, but like basically that's like where the jump off point was, and
Yeah.
that's when it started to really kind of snowball after that.
Yeah,
Um,
it's funny you mentioning the Hajime no Ippo creator in that same Anime News Network article
yeah,
from the other day. The quote from him talking about like, oh yeah, no, I remember Takahashi-san struggling for a while, and then
yeah,
after he had kind of his success, and he was like, oh, invited me to come work at the studio with him, and like I saw like, wow, no, you're making a lot of money. This is not chump change, but he was always so humble about it. He never acted like, oh, I
yeah,
hit the big time, with this, between the
hmm
card game and the multiple shows and video game, all
right,
this stuff, which is, which I think is also says a lot in the same way that like the age doesn't matter for successful artists, kind of thing. I
hmm
think that I don't know if you've probably read Bakuman before by
oh
the
yeah,
Death
yeah,
Note. The Death Note, it's a huge
hmm
favorite of mine, and I feel like
hmm
a lot of the stuff that they talked about in that, and kind of the peering into the lives of being a manga artist of in
right,
that story kind of illustrates a lot
yeah,
of these points. On that same note too, Yu-Gi-Oh is actually, I think, one of, if no, no, it wasn't one of the first because there were shorter ones that I collected all of, but it's definitely the longest running manga series, not even just specifically Jump, that I own every volume of. I
mm,
have everything from front to back, all the the early
hmm
stuff, all of the Duel Monster stuff, the final stuff.
right.
I don't have R, but I have,
That's fine.
yeah, but I have all of the classic stuff from start to finish,
Right.
and I do remember like having because as much as I do appreciate kind of what the Duel Monsters anime did in terms of like compiling certain things together, certain plot lines, particularly when it comes to like the, because Yugi I think is just kind of this great through line altogether, but I feel like there's things that really help aid to Jonochi slash Joey and Kaiba and Bakura's um, character development with that early stuff that's left out. Because
hmm
especially, I think of things like, Kaiba's comeback when, Mokuba gets kidnapped and he comes out of the coma, which only, worked because of Death Tea and his introduction before
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Jonochi's whole entire developmental thing from when he was an asshole early on, and just
hmm
everything that they've been through together long before they even get to Duelist Kingdom. There's a scene where Bakura's getting, the evil, Zork, the Thief King spirit, evil guy, is talking to him while they're, down fighting the Labyrinth brothers, the Paradox brothers or whatever.
hmm
That like, which only works because it's like, well, we have already done the whole, evil spirit of the ring thing. We've seen that already because that was done in the tabletop bit that they did earlier on.
Right.
There's little things like that unfortunately we don't quite get. Or no, hell, even God, this was one that was a huge surprise to me. Is I actually assumed for the longest time that the Dungeon Dice Monster stuff
Mm.
was anime only. Like, oh, I'm sure they produced
Oh.
another game and whatever. It's like no, and then not only was it in the manga, but it was 1,000 times cooler because also it turns out the whole bit where like he's trapped in the burning building and he's got
Yeah.
to redo
Yeah.
the puzzle was part of
Yeah.
that, and there was this whole thing with
Yeah.
like Duke slash Otogi's dad that was
Otoki's
related to that.
gag.
And I'm like, this is amazing. I just assumed all this stuff was like Phil. I thought the bit with like Keith being possessed or whatever was
Yeah.
filler, but I realized wait, no, that's not the case because I remember hearing years ago about how no, he shoots himself in the head because Pegasus was a murdering psychopath in the
Yeah.
manga.
Yep. And then he like, I guess canonically came back for R because R is really weird.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, no.
but actually, it's very funny that you mentioned that because a lot of people, not just you, assume that Dungeon Dice Monsters in the manga it's called Dungeon Dice and Dragons.
Mhm.
So it's even more of like an on the nose, like
Mhm. Mhm.
wink wink, like because Takahashi was like, yeah, subtleties for losers.
Uh-huh.
So he yeah, so that a lot of people think that's filler, and it's not filler in the sense that it was filler like completely made by the anime.
Mhm.
It was a half and half, so they like decided to take parts of one thing and put it in one episode. They put the fire part in a kind of thing that set up. I don't know what you want to call him. I'm going to call him Malik.
Sure.
Um,
That's more that's
uh,
technically, as I've learned, more accurate because I have a friend named Malik, and I'm like, oh, of course.
yeah. So yeah, when he shows up, and that's his kind of introduction.
Hmm.
He, because through Bandit Keith, but it's way more involved because even Otogi's dad is like a part of Otogi's character that you're missing in the anime.
Hmm.
And it's so funny because he shows up in Dark Side of Dimensions.
That's right. Yes, which was so funny because I remember being told, oh yeah, no, this is a sequel to the manga story
Manga,
specifically,
yeah,
not the anime, where with all the the differences included and everything. And I
yeah,
had forgotten when I went to go see it, and until there's a scene where just like, oh, there's his dad, the clown guy, which
right.
I think it was even Mark Thompson voicing both of them because he was Duke as well. And I'm like,
That's
oh,
funny.
oh, of course, yes, that's right. And I remembered, yeah, some of the other little things with also like, Kid Bakura having the ring for the first time, some of these little things, and I'm like, okay, yeah, no, definitely, this is
Yeah,
not consistent with all the liberties of the show. Not to
yeah.
mention, I was reminded the other day I was looking up like, man, how long were some of those filler arcs? And like the virtual world
Um,
stuff and the Orichalcos nonsense, and I'm just like, good lord, some of these were like the length of like a show, like a separate
yeah,
show. Like, good lord in
yeah.
heaven.
So the funniest thing is the first really big major filler arc was the Noah arc,
Yes,
right?
that's right.
And the funniest thing about that is that at the time, so um, they skipped and condensed a lot
Hmm.
in Duel Monsters in general. Like there's a whole 7 volumes worth of things that's just not there.
Hmm.
So they ended up being really close. Like the anime and the manga ended up kind of being very close.
Hmm.
Um, it was so much so that like episode, I think 96, when not Yugi, I'm sorry, Bakura and Dark Malik were fighting. That episode broadcasted a month before it was compiled in graphic novel form.
Oh my god.
So it was like
Wow.
super close to one another. So they needed filler arcs, that filler arc to pad out a lot of things
Yeah.
while the manga caught like was able to like get some more
Finish
ground.
Battle City, for Christ's sake. That's
Exactly.
like some Goku versus Frieza cutting it close. I know a lot of
Hmm.
people probably more familiar with that, but like the fact that like, yeah, Goku and Frieza are fighting in the manga and on television almost in conjunction. And
Right,
they're like,
right.
all right, we need Garlic Jr. All right, that'll buy us about like a quarter of a year, sure, whatever. But yeah, but I mean, it's so funny too because I know with Yu-Gi-Oh, obviously, like some of the bigger duels would go anywhere from 3 to 5 episodes, depending. And,
Yeah,
and even with that, it would still like, well, we gotta buy some more time. There's only so much that we can do, and this is long before the era of today, where shows like My Hero and otherwise, where like they'll take season breaks because they can do
yeah,
that. So it's
cools,
like,
cores. Yeah, everything will come in a core, and then the core ends, and then another. I think that actually happened with Yu-Gi-Oh, not this series, but Yu-Gi-Oh Zeal
oh,
had
okay,
Yu-Gi-Oh Zeal 1 and Yu-Gi-Oh Zeal 2. It's
okay,
like
got it,
Yu-Gi-Oh
okay.
Zeal and then Zeal 2, and it's like what? That's so weird. Like I know that there are other series that have done that, like other series have gone like blah 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 and then blah 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 2.
Yeah, yeah,
And
of
it was
course.
just so weird, like oh man, Yu-Gi-Oh's doing that. That's odd and strange. But yeah, like without the filler arcs to like basically pad out the time that it needed for like the manga to finish up, we would have been in dire straits. There would have
Yeah.
been even worse things, repercussions that would have happened because that was when Yu-Gi-Oh was hot. So, you know,
Here's something too, because and it's so much easier to say this in comparison to Dragon Ball, because if you say the word canon in regards to Dragon Ball, like
yeah.
a nuclear war happens. Uh, with Yu-Gi-Oh, when
Yeah.
it comes to the canon stuff in particular, what's your favorite story arc?
My favorite story canon, I guess,
Yeah,
story
yeah,
arc, probably Duelist Kingdom.
yeah.
If we're talking like in the manga, like I have gone on record saying like, "Oh my god, I love Duelist Kingdom in the manga because it's such a good jumping off point from like the episodic." Because before that, it was the Bakura fight. That was like right after the Bakura fight with the tabletop
Yes, that's right.
RPG. So it was such a good jumping off point because we have our characters, we have like basically our cast of characters that we're going to be seeing through the entire arc. Poor Hanasaki, he got cast to the land of wind and wind and ghosts. He's just gone from the story. But yeah, we got our cast of characters. We're going on an adventure basically, and it's just also, and then Kaiba comes back. He was a vegetable. Then he like woke up because he felt Yugi's presence. Like he just woke up and he's like, I have to get on a copter now because I know what's going on. And a lot of the intrigue and stuff like that was really good. Made more sense in the manga as opposed to like the anime tried a lot, but it got too. It was like too big. Like everything was like, we don't have dual boxes here. We have dual rings, and the dual rings are huge, giant structures on the island. And it's just like, wow, that's too much.
Well, there's certainly things I think about the anime version that I do still appreciate, that the liberties that they took with certain things.
Yeah.
That are still, I mean, because even like the the actually I'll put it this way, the whole like Ghost Kaiba thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of course in the manga, I was very surprised. It's like, no, it's the puppeteer guy, and here's a puppet, and I'm like, all right, the Ghost Kaiba thing in and of itself was kind of like a little bit hard to believe. This is really weird, but okay, it's funny, but like, okay, sure, And then, that whole thing, and then he comes back, and then goes to find the dual disc system and get that and everything, and then jumping out of the window after dodging the guys with the invisible guns. I mean pistols. And then like the mimic of death or whatever, all that kind of stuff. Like that version, I do admit, I think, and it's probably just because I saw it first, I do like that more than the original.
No, I understand that.
Yeah, but yeah, there's so many little things about them, because what we're really saying, we're not like sponsored this, even though we've worked for Viz. This is not a sponsorship, guys, everybody. But legit, like the Yu-Gi-Oh manga is absolutely so. If you grew up with the series and you haven't seen it, I was gonna save this for the end, but screw it. It is absolutely worth like seeing all of. It's an incredible experience. On a similar thing, because probably my answer would also be Duelist Kingdom for just all of my attachment to it, but it's tied very, very closely with Death T. Because I do really love. I like I said, I've gone back and I've watched the first episode of the Duel Monsters Yu-Gi-Oh, the Yugi versus Kaiba Duel. I've watched that episode 1,000 times. I practically know both its like 4Kids dub script and also its
Japanese script.
Its Japanese script, like practically by heart at this point. And but even with as much as I love that, it doesn't even come close to the build up of the entire Death T, the tower arc, where it's Yugi and all of it, because I love more so than any of the more like kind of plot focused characters, and I wanted to talk about characters too. I love Yugi's friends. When Yugi and his friends all get to do stuff together, and it's cool and interesting and not capsule monsters, I love them. I love Honda / Tristan. I love Anzu / Taya. I love Janochi / Joey.
It's so funny. I don't mean to interrupt you, but
please,
when you said Death T and Honda, I can only imagine the fucking episode. The chapter where he's like,
blocks.
"No, go on ahead.
Yep.
Go on ahead."
Yeah.
And he's it's like, "No, come with us." And he's like, "I can't because my jacket."
Were you there? I forget. Were you there at I think it was the con in Vancouver. Were you there when we did like the dramatic reading of that scene?
No, I wasn't.
Oh man, I remember. This is just a brief little memory I'll share.
Go ahead.
Many years ago, over a decade ago, one of the very first conventions I ever guested at was Anime Evolution in Vancouver. It was a wonderful experience, and I pitched to some of the Abridger guys that I was hanging out with at the time, like, hey, we should do like a dramatic reading for Yu-Gi-Oh. I don't know why, I just like wanted to, and we did that scene we did the scene where Honda sacrifices himself, or so we thought. And I remember like I felt really fulfilled doing that, because not only just was it fun from like a self-indulgent performance standpoint, but also because like this is something that maybe people don't know, because and that's a big reason why and I'm sure you would resound with this, why I want people to know about this stuff, because I think for better or worse, because at the end of the day it still makes people happy, and I'm sure that probably at the end of the day that would have been the most important thing to Takahashi-san. But the fact is, a lot of people in other territories, all they know Yu-Gi-Oh as is the 4Kids version that we were presented. And it, it served the purpose of, it was a fun, entertaining show that we grew up with and on Saturday morning, and it was exciting, and etc. But there is a lot of beauty, and not even just because of the censorship stuff and everything, but just in general, especially with just like even stuff in the anime in general glossed over and changed and stuff.
It's funny because it's like an adaptation that glosses over some details from the manga. Then you have the 4Kids version, which basically glosses over those details. So we're on a fourth generation of like Game of Telephone.
Interpretation of an artist like incredible, which I know even on the first viewing of something that's like, oh, this is a toy commercial show, which you could argue to a certain extent that like every Shonen Jump series is like that's what you're signing up for when you do a show with the series,
and especially if you're talking about Yu-Gi-Oh now. I would definitely say it's a toy commercial because it's like
the later stuff. That's what it was. Of course, that's what it was for.
But
I think that even beyond that, like it really, there really is something to it that is really worth appreciating for its artistry and for its story and for its characters.
Yeah, definitely.
Which on that note as well, favorite characters from all of the original series.
Favorite characters, huh? I don't really have favorite characters in anything, really.
Really? Nothing? Wow.
in like every series that I'm a part of, or like every series that like I'm a cult leader. Every series that I read or like, I usually don't have a standout favorite. There are characters that I like for different qualities. But I think in Yu-Gi-Oh, like I don't know, like. I like Yugi, like I like the character arc of Yugi, but I also like Jonochi. Like I like Jonochi's like fire and spirit, and he's cool guy. I like Anzu because of her assets. I'm just kidding. I like Anzu because she's so kind.
Good, you said it, so I don't have to. Anyway.
Please don't cancel me.
No. I actually do. I to defend you. No, I also genuinely do like Anzu as a character. I think she's a sweetheart.
I do.
I think that she gets too much shit for. Granted, she does unfortunately fall into my often criticized trope of like, I'm the lead girl in an anime that's probably a shonen. My personality is very easy to just kind of interpret as name of lead boy character that I'm gonna say 800 times. I know that, but I think that there is a lot more to her than just that. Kind of first perception.
She's like not a combatant.
Yeah.
In the sense of like what Yu-Gi-Oh considers a combatant. So she's like the lead female role, and I think that she grounds like this group of characters. Like if you think about Yu-Gi-Oh, you think about Yugi, Jonochi, Anzu, and Honda. And even though two of those people don't really, fight in card battles, or like, they're still integral parts of the story because they have relations with the other characters. And
yeah, absolutely.
I think that every character in Yu-Gi-Oh has a place in the story. Now, if we're just talking about like characters that kind of like make me like when they come up on screen, I'm like, ooh, yay. I guess like maybe Yami Mark or maybe Pegasus. Some of the villains, it's like the villains. I love like the villains because they're so distinct from one another.
They're fun.
Like,
they're very fun. Yeah. Malik/Merrick.
Yeah.
I go back and forth with him a lot, as I do with Kaiba. I know that they're like they're the two big fan favorites.
Right.
Bakura, and
Yeah.
I would say particularly the manga version of Bakura in particular, and that includes
Mm.
also the evil spirit as well.
Right. Right.
I think that they're really, really fascinating. Again, anime took a lot of liberties, and there's a lot of stuff that we didn't see, in the Duel Monster series and everything. But I think
Yeah.
that they're like probably the most in-depth villain, like the sum of all the parts, as a pair of characters, or even
Yeah.
I guess to a certain extent like a trio of characters, because you have Ryo Bakura, and then the thief Bakura, and then also
Yeah.
Zork. And kind of the
Yeah.
although that's also kind of
Oh.
a different thing too. We won't get into
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I do love Haga Weevil, because
Oh
he's
yeah. Yeah. He's fun.
such a little shit.
Yeah.
He's a great like low level grunt kind of villain, and actually even in the filler stuff, like the Orichalco stuff, he was amusing, and has cool cards. Weirdly, like his cards that matters to me were like, you have a cool deck of like all your different versions of your insect decks are interesting and cool to me.
Right. That's true. Actually, if we add on those characters, I didn't even think about those characters.
Yeah.
I guess Ryuzaki, Dinosaur Ryuzaki of the Rex Raptor, he's cool too because he's just like a guy.
Yeah.
Like he's just like a fucking dude, and also in like the Japanese version, he speaks with a Kansai accent. So like,
Oh.
yeah, and he like very like stereotypical Kansai accent too. Like it's like I don't know if you've ever seen Hajime no Ippo, but like Sendo, him and whatchamacallit, and Ryuzaki talk like pretty much like the stereotypical Kansai accent kind of thing. But I like him.
Isn't
Hmm.
Julian Grabowski, if you're out there, he could correct me on this, but I think isn't even Goku's Japanese voice, I think, is like a sort of like a
So
merger of a
that's
bunch of
more
different stuff.
that's more Tohoku.
Okay, gotcha.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because Kazuki Meiko Tsunami,
Yeah.
he speaks with a kind of Tohoku Ben accent,
Oh, okay.
which is kind of like because he's a fisherman, so
Yeah, of course.
it's either Tosa Ben, which is like a place in Japan, Tosa, or something similar because he like uses all this. It sounds like everything kind of ends with be, like he's like. Son, da na 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 be, like it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
weird. Like if you ever watched him in the original Japanese version, you would hear his like kind of a weird fisherman's accent.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's more like him and kind of Goku kind of have a
Yeah,
more-
I know Goku.
Goku is just like
he's a little bit of
hick.
a he's like a hodgepodge, like backwoods kind of yeah.
He's like a hick turned up to like 15. 'Cause him and Chi-Chi like kind of talk like that too.
Yeah, Chi-Chi and Ox King Yumao, I think, are a little bit more refined in the way that they speak comparatively. And then I know Goten speaks like his mom, and then Gohan has much more of like a proper way.
Goten and Gohan just speak normally. Like
No,
Gohan
I
speaks politely.
think,
but...
no. I think Gohan is super. Again, Julian, correct me if you ever hear this. Saya Jedi, go follow him. He kicks ass. I think Gohan speaks very properly because he's very well
He does.
educated, and then Goten, I think, speaks like Chi-Chi because she has a little bit of a different variation. This is so inside baseball to everybody listening right now.
I think Goten just speaks normally. I don't remember him having like a really like an accent. I think he just speaks like normal, like he just has normal kid. Like he hangs out with Trunks. So
Actually, here's a
speaks like a
question
little shit.
because maybe
What?
you would know this better than anybody else.
What's up?
Out here? What are the distinct differences in the way? Because when we think of Yugi and Yami in the dub, we think of the very very as the show continued to press on and they became more and more differentiated from each other with the way they were performed. But is there a particular way? And actually, this is fascinating because Yami as a character changed from I'm an evil spirit, I'm an alter ego, like a crazy version of Yugi to no, actually it's this the spirit of a king of an Egyptian pharaoh.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about it because the answer to my own question is Yugi's my favorite character, and I love Yugi and Yami / Atem as a package deal as a single protagonist. I adore them. They're some of my they're some of my favorite characters ever made. When it comes to that, and actually even before the differences in the way they speak,
Yeah.
Was it always established? I don't know if Takahashi-san ever talked about this in interviews.
Right.
Was it always planned that the spirit of the puzzle was going to be like a spirit, or was it actually like at first going to be an alter ego, and then it kind of changed to that? Has they ever talked about that before?
I I don't remember if there's anything concrete, but it feels like that.
Yeah,
Because the way that Shonen Jump manga, like serialized manga works, is it's very freeform,
yeah,
and unless he really had like a game plan, like 30 volumes in,
yeah.
I feel like it just kind of transitioned to that naturally over the course of the story.
Yeah. Because
Because
the
even like
first
in the
real hint of that we got was when Shadi appears.
Shoddy, yeah,
Yes, yeah.
exactly. So like I feel like it kind of just naturally transitioned to that when it stopped being so much about just games per week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but to answer your question about how the two speak in Japanese, at least,
Mm-hmm.
Yugi is very like soft spoken. He uses boku as a first person pronoun.
Uh-huh.
So he's like, he uses like very humble, not humble, but he's like a very like shonen. He's a very young boy archetype.
Yeah.
He's like, timid and blah blah blah. Anything that you can gauge off of like what you know from him in the story, he kind of reflects in his speech. And Yami Yugi is very confident. He uses ore. Ore is a first person pronoun for like most shonen protagonists will use ore.
Of course.
Jonochi uses ore. Um, Kaiba uses ore. Or Kaiba used Boku in his first fucking appearance, which is weird. He's like just it's creepy. But yeah, and Yugi's like the more confident one. Yami Yugi's the more confident one. He's
Mm-hmm.
like, you can like quote anything. He's like, "Sore wa dou kana? Kono toki o matte ita ze." Like he uses ze. Like ze is like a ending copula that like only like the shonen protagonists use, or like a man would use ze and daze and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and Yugi wouldn't use that kind of language. He calls Jonochi Jonochi kun. Kun is like
Yes,
a
of course. Yeah. Well,
yeah,
and
Jonochi
also
kun.
interestingly, he refer because this is something that changed a lot because of various mistakes in the dub. But in
Yeah.
Japanese, consistently he has referred to Yami slash Atem slash the spirit as
Oh yeah.
Mohitori no Boku, which is
Moshiri no boku.
which
Yep.
is the other me,
Yep. Other
and
me.
of course references the the more polite Boku
Yeah.
comparatively.
Right.
And then of
Right.
course the spirit refers to him as Aibo, which is partner.
Yep.
That's another little subtlety that like in the dub it's it was.
I don't even want to talk about that
Yeah,
one. That
yeah,
one's
it
really
was all
bad.
over the place. It was that was also a lack of foresight of like, oops, he does have a real name. Haha,
That was
lol. Yeah,
so bad when I watched it. I watched it like later, and I'm like,
yeah,
what
yeah,
are they
yeah,
doing?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
He
that
calls himself
happens.
Yu-Gi-Oh? What?
Yeah. Well, no, no. There was okay. Here's a history lesson for this. So I remember. So when they got to the part of the story early on where it's like, okay, now we're actually determining that like, oh, I have a spirit. I have another like thing
Yeah.
that I switch between, and we're kind of actually acknowledging this now.
Mhm.
The very first thing, it was just spirit. You're just the spirit of the puzzle. That's I don't know what your name
Mhm.
is. They finished
Right.
Duelist Kingdom, and the spirit is like, I'm called many things.
That
Pharaoh,
that's what I'm
Yu-Gi-Oh,
talking about.
I am
That's what I'm
Yami.
talking about.
And they're like, okay, I guess we'll call you Yami, which is really just derived from a because and actually here, fill in this blank. Yami
Right.
Yugi, it's literally Dark Yugi. So
Dark
that
Yu-Gi-Oh.
was just the first identification of the alter ego, is that this we have Yugi and Dark Yugi. Like that's really all
Right.
it was. It wasn't a name. It's kind of
It was,
like
yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's kind of like how we call Muten Roshi Master Roshi, which Muten
Yeah.
Roshi literally means what, like the invincible old master or old sage.
Invincible. Yeah, it's like the old master who is invincible under the heavens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then, but they were like, Roshi is his name now. It's like, well, no, but we're just gonna call him Roshi. So okay.
And that one's a little bit more understandable because
Sure,
it's
sure,
like,
sure.
sure, like I'm willing to suspend my disbelief for this,
Yeah.
but this is that when I first heard that, they were like, I'm called many things, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pharaoh, and it's like, you have no memories.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have no
Which was a product of
memories.
them not knowing, like, oops, like this is,
But that was like
that a plot
infamous
element
four
is,
kids,
yeah,
no foresight
yeah,
kind of
yep,
thing. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
and it happened
So,
all the time back then, absolutely, But
yep.
and then of course, then it was Yami for a little while. Then it was, oops, he has an actual name that's a plot point in the final arc. Let's just start saying Pharaoh and then hope that the kids forget. Like we hope the kids forget
Yeah.
about the GS ball. If you know what that is, you're a cool person.
Yeah, of course. The
And
infamous
yeah,
BS ball.
and then finally, of course, Atem. Which by the way,
Yeah.
is there significance behind the choice of that name Atem, or is it just like was it just a cool Egyptian name?
I there's a friend of mine, Japanese friend of mine, who ran a website that went into like a lot of that stuff,
Uh huh.
and that was like I never really retained any of it.
Uh huh.
But I mean, like, I I can't really say for sure. Maybe it was just a really cool name that he thought would sound good on a pharaoh.
Mm-hmm.
I know the Katarche, like the little thing that had his name on it that
Uh huh.
Anzu bought for him, and that's what eventually ended up being on the like. I know that was actually spelled like with, I don't know, hieroglyphics or
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah. Yeah.
ancient hieroglyphic text.
Mm-hmm.
It was spelled Atemu because
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's just how Takahashi would render it because he's Japanese.
Yeah.
So
Of
he's just like,
course.
oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, so I mean, like, I don't know like the real significance behind it. There's probably someone out there who's like got a blog, who's like, slamming his keyboard, going like, he doesn't know. Like, I don't know. But I do know that it was a.
Hey, do you know? Leave a comment.
Yeah, if you
Actually,
know, like, please
throw
don't message
down.
me.
No, please don't at me. Please don't follow me at Shin Hiroko. Uh, um,
Um, yeah,
well, with we can I think about approaching the hour mark. Oh no, we're over the hour mark. We can start to
we're
wrap
over
things
the
up a
hour.
little bit, but yeah,
That's fine. That's fine.
a huge thing to emphasize is to those of you who want to now appreciate Kazuki Takahashi's work. The entire manga is out there. I'm sure they will probably be back in stores if they weren't already consistently
Well,
anyway.
also, if you want, the Shonen Jump website, and
Yes,
it's
that's
run
what I was
by
gonna
Viz.
say. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you want the physical versions, they have the 3-in-1s that they just reissued like
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
2 years ago, I think. At this point, I think it's
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
And those compile everything into the same name volumes. So there's no Yu-Gi-Oh, Yu-Gi-Oh Duelist, and Yu-Gi-Oh Millennium, or
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
all that stuff is. That's
Yeah.
all whatever.
Yeah.
But it's all under one label. It's under the 3-in-1 volume, Viz Big. And in if you want, the Shonen Jump website has all the chapters in that kind of Yu-Gi-Oh Duelist, Yu-Gi-Oh Millennium World format, just because, I guess, for consistency's sake.
Yeah. Yeah. Just for
Um,
managing it.
but the
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's on there in the vault. Every chapter from volume 1 to volume 38 is in the vault, and if you want, the first 3 chapters are free. But honestly, it's like $1. I'm shilling for the Viz app again on another
No, I will say,
podcast thing, but
I will sing its praises because I mean, no, the Jump
yeah.
app has I think been one of the biggest things that has prevented piracy for manga. It basically it's not single handedly, but certainly to a huge effect.
Yeah.
It stopped the need for
Mhm.
for scanlations and fan stuff. Like
This
not
was
really.
a this was a dream of mine
Hmm.
to have an app like this back in the days when I was like, doing less than scrupulous things with my time.
Yeah.
But like I wanted an app like this. I was like, please shut people like this up.
Hmm.
People like me up. Shut me up. Put your money where your mouth is and just do something like this so we can all enjoy the same thing. And in the end, it's all about enjoying the manga that you want to, or the thing that you like. So I love the price point. I love how accessible it is. I love how you can just tell people about it and they'll usually just give up $2 because it's like $2 a month. Who cares? And I think it's great.
Yeah.
And I think that if you love Yu-Gi-Oh, if you want to check out the manga, that's probably the best place for you to do it, unless you want physical, of course. But
Yeah. Yeah, which is also worth collecting if you want to,
Of
absolutely.
course.
I covet I actually only have some of the Millennium World stuff here. Most of my collection's back in New
Mm.
York, but
Uh,
it's a cherished treasure. Much
my
like,
my collection got a little destroyed
oh
in flood,
no,
so I've been slowly but surely building up my collection again. That's all my manga, by the way, not just Yu-Gi-Oh.
oh that
So yeah, it
sucks.
was pretty
Yeah,
bad.
yeah.
I actually bought one from Book Off in New York, and I was like, "Oh God, they have volume. I think it was like 26 or something like that." Yeah, I needed that one. I took it back home, and I took off the dust cover, and it was a different volume,
Hmm.
and I was so mad. I wanted to throw the fucking volume out the window.
Well, they'll never
But
go out of print, so that's an easy one.
that's yeah, that's
Not an
good.
inexpensive one, but an easy one to recollect for all the damaged
That's
goods.
true.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the Japanese Bunko Bon,
Hmm.
the reissued with
Yes,
Takahashi's
with the
beautiful art.
beautiful, beautiful artwork.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, on the
absolutely.
covers.
Yeah, and
I hope
there's a separate art book I think just for those illustrations, isn't there?
there is dual art, which is actually in English by Udon.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, and then there is monster art, which came out a little later. I think sometime around the time Dark Side of Dimensions came out,
Okay, yeah, that
along
makes
with
sense. Yeah.
a new book called Millennium Book or something like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, that came out, and yeah, like I'm very adamant about like I want those in English too,
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
and I want to work on them.
Hey, well, you know what, man? Ash Paulson put out the feelers for a lot of the Mega Man stuff that Udon did for the art books and things. So you know what? It's very possible. Hire this man.
Well,
He's damn good at his job. I can attest for many many years. Um, for I guess just to kind of to close out real quick.
yeah.
What's the biggest takeaway? And I'm sure that you've probably already expressed this a little bit because you and
Hmm.
many people have shared some wonderful words on Twitter after
Hmm.
the sad news. But what's the
Hmm.
biggest takeaway from Yu-Gi-Oh and Takahashi's work in general that has affected your life?
Well, I would say that through all the themes that he left in the original work or in his work in general, um, he always emphasized togetherness
Hmm.
and cohesiveness, and that it's not just about one person, it's about the group,
Hmm.
and it's about how those people help other people. And you know, I wouldn't be where I am today without people that have helped me, and I couldn't just do it by my own efforts. I had to seek help. So I think out of everything, Yu-Gi-Oh, oh, ancient Egypt, stuff like that, and cool card battles, it was all derived from interests that he had, and he thought Egypt was cool. He went to Egypt. He took a trip to Egypt and was enamored by it, and he wanted to make a a manga that was a tribute to Egypt. Um, and he took influences from other things, and he was willing to get creative even after his series ended, and give people who were in charge of his stuff all these kind of ideas that would were kind of crazy if you kind of think about it, like this is school for playing card games and motorcycles and stuff like that. But I my biggest takeaway from his work is that um he was a dedicated person that really wanted to finish his story. And I've told the anecdote, which is in one of the afterwards of the reissued volumes, where he said that he almost died completing the series.
Hmm.
He had an ulcer that led to him losing so much, like almost half the blood in his body,
Hmm.
and he had to be hospitalized. And he still finished, even though the arc wasn't how he really wanted, he envisioned it. He still finished it, and um, you have to give someone like that credit because that's a hell of a thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think that If I take away anything from it, it's that I really admire someone who, despite not immediately making their big hit or making it big or whatever, still still perseveres.
Yeah.
And perseverance is a very big part of Yu-Gi-Oh! And finding that story that ends in light. And yeah,
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. When I go back, here and there, and I'll watch episodes, and I think about, like, what is the biggest takeaway for me, and it's why, like, I love Yugi and Yami as a pair so much, as a collection of characters, as a single protagonist, because that in and of itself is, you're not alone. It's also why I, love his friends more so than I do, like, the kind of more plot associated characters and stuff, because
right.
that's where my value is I think, this ties back to the earlier moments of, like, the stuff we were talking about, differences between the show and the manga, but this is something that's actually relevant. There's a part towards the end of Duelist Kingdom where they're getting
Hmm.
close to the finals,
Right.
and I grew up with the show first, where Yugi and Jonochi are having a duel, and
Right.
to me at the time I was like, well, that seems silly because they're going after, they know what their goals are, right?
Right.
But they made it, and obviously it was to, like, buy the Red Eyes Black Dragon,
Yeah. Buy the Dark Mage or
yeah, buy
whatever.
Black
Yeah.
Skull Dragon and Dark, yeah, that's really what it was. But it was also like, it ended up being a really good setup for, Jinochi's eventual arc in Battle City, about, like,
Right.
you've been there for me, but I also need to prove myself, on my own as well. So it did serve a
Hmm.
purpose ultimately. But what was interesting to me was, in the manga, when they got up to that point, Jinochi was like, "We are literally here to save your grandpa. Here, you win.
Right.
We made it to the finals. Hey, Yugi, here, you win." He's like, "Okay, cool. Here's the
Right.
card that will give you $3 million or however much to, fix your sister's eyesight." And it's funny because not only was that out of, like, wow, that was smart, cool,
Mhm.
but also it's out of those moments like that in Duelist Kingdom, where it was like the gang, trying to, like, band together and solve this mystery, because it very well could have been that case. In fact, I think it was the case where he's like, "Don't come with me, just let me handle this
Mhm.
alone." And then Shinochi's like, "Well, I'm gonna go with you because I got my own reasons." And then also,
Right.
literally, Anzu and Honda sneak on the ship. Like, that feeling of, like, wow, me and my friends going on an adventure, not only going on an adventure, but they're here because they want to help, like, do this, like, life or death thing that is one of the toughest things I've ever dealt with in my life up to that point. Like, I always think of moments like that, and I think of the marker friendship symbol,
Yeah.
of which I've shared with many people. I've probably shared one with you at a con or two.
I think so. Yeah.
Yes, amongst many folks. And I always think of that because, like, it's, if I didn't have those, and they've changed many times. My Jonochi, Anzu, Honda,
Yeah.
have changed many times throughout my life, for better or worse. And
Right.
but I'm very grateful to, have any combination of those types of people in my life.
Hmm.
That's what, when I think of Yu-Gi-Oh, I think of one of the most beautiful, probably my favorite card ever made, which I believe that Takahashi-san did the art for, is
Uh-huh.
the Yugioh friendship one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Those
where
are
yeah,
basically from like the manga. They're like stills from the manga that were just,
yeah,
but yeah, they
yeah.
were done by Takahashi.
Yes, yeah. I think I might even have those somewhere. I love those, like, because I look at that and I'm
Hmm.
just like, this is what this person's work means to me. And, like,
Hmm.
as I think about my own work, and, like, because I'm in my 30s now and I haven't had, like, any kind of big success. I don't know if I will, but, like, I keep persevering. I still look back to things that have inspired me from that era and from the work that he
Hmm.
did. And I do hope that and I'm glad that it continues to live on. Even if it is mostly through merchandise stuff. I'm very
Yeah.
grateful we get stuff like Dark Side of Dimensions here and there, and all that
Right.
kind of stuff. So I'm really grateful, and I'm really glad that, uh, you know, for as much as it is, like, a thing that also even hardcore fans like us, we rag on it. Like, I'm very
Mhm.
glad that Yu-Gi-Oh has its place in history. You know,
Yeah.
in
Oh,
just as ancient Egyptian history is so influential and
mhm.
interesting creatively. Weirdly enough, this is now just as influential and historical to the world.
Yep.
So
Oh yeah, definitely.
yeah.
I I
Well,
100% agree to you, man.
Well, thank you for joining. I did both to you and everybody listening. Do you want to be a shill? Do you want to plug anything you got going on, please? Dude, we're at that
I
point.
mean, I don't know. I'm so emotional, like I just. But yeah, I mean, You could follow me on Twitter, I guess. My it's at Shin Hiroko, because I haven't changed that in like 15 years.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
neither have I. Probably 18 for me. I gotta say, I'm gonna fillet you for a minute. Like this man is a very very talented artist. Which I
oh, thank you.
not everybody knows. You're also designer. You worked on Doki Doki
Yep.
Literature Club as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I worked on Doki Doki. My friend Dan
mhm.
Salvato.
Great guy.
In Yeah, he's a great guy. I was the initial, like, I won't want to say character designer, but I did help him form the characters, and what they would like eventually look like is completely different from what shitty thing that I drew. But like I ended up helping him with that, and I don't know, if you go on my Twitter, it's like the first thing you'll see there. It's pinned because most people find me from the game, and
Oh,
then
okay.
they like, yeah, they like, because and especially in the new game Doki Doki Literature Club Plus,
Hmm.
uh, he has me like like old concept art that is like unlockables.
Oh,
So
yes. Okay. Gotcha.
so a lot of people find me from that. But yeah, I mean, go play that. That's made by a way more talented person.
Oh,
Um,
you
and
stop it.
and I mean, if you read Shonen Jump, I work for a lot of I do like at least 3 series for that: Undead Unluck and Kaiju number 8, and a new one, Super Smartphone. I work on those as the translator. Um, and yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I can really show. I mean, like, it's been a very trying couple of days, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to just throw all this stuff that I'm doing in
no, that's
here.
all right. No, no, no.
Yeah,
That why I always like to give people a platform. But no, I very much
I
appreciate this.
appreciate that.
This was the
No,
last second of just like, you know what, I would like to talk about this stuff. And again, you're the
no,
biggest Yu-Gi-Oh fan I've ever met, and I know quite a number of very very hardcore Yu-Gi-Oh fans. But
it's very funny. Like, people try to, like, I guess, gut check me, or like try to like test my knowledge or something like that. And I'll leave you. Can I tell you like this one anecdote that
Sure,
was
sure,
like
sure,
from,
sure.
I was with Martin,
Hmm.
Little Karibo,
Of course.
and we were at Youmacon, I think it was.
Yeah, Michigan. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I think that like he had invited me to be on a Yu-Gi-Oh panel,
Okay.
and I was like, why? Like, like, why? No one knows who the hell I am. I went up there. I'm like, hey guys, I'm Antfish from Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever, from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Abridged, and then that stuck with me. Even though I said no, I'm kidding. People like 2 years, 3 years afterwards would like think that I was him, even though we look absolutely nothing
It's fun.
alike.
It's funny.
And
Anthony's with my agency now. He did doing voiceover
yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
which is so
yeah,
funny.
yeah. And it's funny too because like I went there and they had like Yu-Gi-Oh trivia, and they were like telling, like, everyone had to make up a question, and I made up a question that was factually accurate, but no one knew it
Uh huh.
because it was such an obscure fact. I think it was like, what is the name? What is Ishizu Ishtar's real first name? Like, what was the name that she was initially introduced into the Yu-Gi-Oh fandom with? And everyone was just like, her name's Isis, and I'm like, no, 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 no. In Yu-Gi-Oh Forbidden Memories, her name was Naomi Ishizu,
Wow.
and that was like only exclusive to the Japanese version.
Huh.
And like Dual Stories on the Game Boy
Uh huh.
Color, and like from a few other games too. But she was not introduced as Ishizu. She was introduced as Naomi Ishizu. And
Interesting.
then everyone in the crowd had their, like, they looked like I had turds coming out of my mouth. They were like, "What? Like, what are you talking
Well,
about?"
it is
And
interesting because Ishizu is just like it's sort of it's a Japanese pronunciation of Isis, But then
Yeah, it's
but then
like
the
if you were
ancient
to take
character, yeah,
the ancient character is actually called
yes,
Isis, and it's
Isisu,
like
yeah.
yeah, Isis. It's like it's confusing, but like it's funny that I did. It was just so funny that those two things happened where I not only got mistaken for another friend of mine, but I also like made everyone like duh, like dude, what? So yeah, I take solace in the fact that I'm probably like the biggest Yu-Gi-Oh fan in North America. Let's say that.
Oh yeah, I would not question that whatsoever.
Right.
Absolutely
Right.
not. I'll share one last little anecdote as well. Actually, I went
Go ahead.
to
Go ahead.
and there is footage of it, but I've not been able to track it down. Maybe somebody can. I was lucky enough to get to go to the premiere in New York when I still lived in New York City. I went to the
Mhm.
premiere of the crossover movie with GX and 5Ds.
Oh, Bonds Beyond
Bonds Beyond
Time.
Time. Yes, I went to the premiere of that, and they had a bunch of the actors. I saw Dan Green there. I had met Dan Green before that. I had interviewed him for a
Yeah.
school project. He's the sweetest guy ever. Sean
Yeah, he seems like
Schemmel
it.
was there. Darren Dunstan, who's the voice director, and he's the voice of Pegasus as well.
Mhm.
We're all there. They were very nice. That's where I met.
You mean the first? Wait, you mean the first voice of Yugi, right?
Uh, I
Because of that little. I don't know if you know about that, but like that it was like that promotional McDonald's
Oh, that's
video, and it had
right. Yeah.
Darren
Well,
Dunstan as
no.
Yugi.
That was Greg. That was Greg Abbey. Yeah.
Oh, was
No.
it? Oh, I thought it was Darren
No,
for
no,
some
no.
reason.
Here's another little funny thing. This has been out there, but no. So Greg Abbey, who was he was this is also funny. He was the second voice of Tristan. The first voice
Yeah,
of
yeah.
Tristan was Sam Riegel, who's
Sam
now
Riegel,
super
yeah.
popular from Critical Role and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
then they replaced him, and then but originally Greg Abbey did Yugi on that Toys R Us like videotape promotional thing
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And then they gave him Tristan. He lost the part because he moved to LA and he couldn't do it. Dan Green ended
Right.
up getting it, and then years later when they did Yu-Gi-Oh 5Ds, Greg ended up being Yusei. So he finally, like 2 generations later, ended up being, the main, you guy of one of the series.
You guy.
But I also met this gentleman who I've also interviewed before, Michael Hagney, who is he was mainly known for directing and voicing a lot of characters in Pokemon. But
Yeah.
I remember he was there, and they were filming fans that were talking about being there for the the movie and everything. And I was one of the I was in my 20s. I was one of the older people that was there, interested in seeing the movie because it was mostly children. I'm surprised.
Yeah,
I'm
right,
surprised
of
I didn't look like a creep or something. But they wanted to
Right.
film me talking about. And by the way, it's funny. Just speaking of Martin, brief little shout out. I had my Screw the Rules, I Have Money shirt on, which I think they tilted the camera upward so you wouldn't see it. Probably knowing why for multiple reasons. But they were filming me talking about, I was a big fan of it as a kid, and then a friend of mine got me back into the show again, and I'm real excited to see this movie. And then they had me do for all they wanted to do the catchphrases and stuff. So I did let's rev it up, and then get your game on, being really aggravating. And then it's time to duel. And there is footage of me doing that. I think I had only done Pokemon at that point in terms of my voiceover stuff. So this is really, really early on. I was probably very cringy and dressed in sweatpants and looking like a fucking loser. But that was a huge highlight. And just getting to meet some of those guys, and now folks that I've had the pleasure of working with here and there, and who've been very, very kind, and that was awesome. And and oddly enough, Yu-Gi-Oh was one series for all my time in New York. I never got to work on the show. I always really I had one audition. I think maybe I told you this years ago. I had one audition for Zexal/Zeal, and I did not get. But so that would have been cool to get that opportunity if that were possible.
I have a similar I don't mean to drag
No,
this on
please,
any
please,
more
please,
than
please.
it already
No,
does.
no.
But,
Drag it. Go ahead.
I had an opportunity to actually work on a Yu-Gi-Oh series just recently, almost.
Okay.
But it fell through. And I was super hyped up for it. I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna finally get to work on a Yu-Gi-Oh series. And then I realized what Yu-Gi-Oh series I'd be working on, and I was just like, oh wait, I'm gonna be working on that one. Sevens.
Oh, the newest one. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I'm like, wait a second. And I was like, and I got kind of I was like kind of mixed. I was like, oh, I'll be working on a Yu-Gi-Oh series, but it's like it's sort of like if you went to like a McDonald's and you wanted like a quarter pounder, but instead they put like whipped cream or some shit on it, and then you're like, what is this? Like, this isn't exactly what I wanted. I guess I'll eat it, but like, I was just like, okay. But it ended up falling through. I don't know. They did at that point. I think that they didn't have much faith in the brand anymore. I don't know. I
Well,
hope that changes.
I'll even say, actually, this is a little inside baseball, but I actually
Yeah.
recall hearing at one point that, yeah, there was a distinct possibility that Yu-Gi-Oh was not going to continue in North America because
Yeah.
my understanding is that the new card game, and this has a
Yeah.
happy ending, of course, because we know the ending is we did get it. But the new Sevens card game is a different thing with like different backs and stuff, and
Yeah. Rush Duel.
yeah, and the popularity of card games in general has waned a lot in the U.S.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so because the TV series is effectively a commercial for the physical product, if the physical
Right.
product isn't going to get brought here, what's the point of doing an entire production of a show?
Exactly.
But as it turned out, this is why I'm very glad that Duel Links and Master Duel ended up being as massively successful as they are. It's the
Right.
video games that have kind of
Mm.
helped breathe. I think, at least in North America, probably other properties
Hmm.
have breathed new life into
Yeah.
into Yu-Gi-Oh for people, which I'm very glad about. And even even on Duel Links, like hearing for the most part all the reprised actors as the characters again, and hearing everybody come on in, even just for a
Yeah.
couple lines of dialogue and stuff. It's just like, oh, I'm so glad that these characters are still just like out there in the ether for people to enjoy. And
It's yeah. It's great. I mean, I got back into Yu-Gi-Oh because of Master Duel.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
for the
yeah,
longest time, I just wanted a simulator that I could play on my lunch breaks, and it just well ended up being like every turn is like 15 minutes. But I mean, I still got my wish, and these are all things I wanted like way back, but they're coming into fruition now, and I think it's great
yeah,
that a new generation of people are getting to experience at least some part of what Yu-Gi-Oh is.
yeah.
You know.
Well, everyone out there, we've shilled enough of many things. Please go indulge, go relive, go introduce yourself to things that you may or may not have experienced before. We hope you enjoy it.
Yep.
Rest in peace to an absolutely genius artist. Our hearts go
Legend.
out to all the people that knew him and worked with him. All across the world,
Yep.
and who loved and appreciated his work. And cards have hearts, and
Hmm.
and we all believe in the heart of the cards, I would say. And so yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. Go follow Dave on Twitter. If you want to follow me, I'm at Kerbifer, in case you came here from somewhere else. And we'll catch you all next time. It's your move.